Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in this lesson, we're going to finish off the topic of the mustathna and how it functions. So we covered that the adawat istithna, the different elements that create the istithna, that create the exemption, can be broken down into three categories. We have a harf, which is illa, which we covered before. We have nouns, which are for ghayru, siwa, suwan, and sawa. And in this context, they would all be translated as in English to accept. Then we have three words, khara, ada, and hasha, which can either be verbs, af'al, or they can be huruf, depending on something we're going to cover in this lesson. So in the previous lesson, we talked about illa. Here we're going to talk about the asma and the af'al / huruf, how these ones here function also. So let's start off with the nouns. How do these function when they come as adat istithna, when they come to create an exception? So when you have a istithna, when you have an exception, you're always gonna have these three things. You're gonna have the adat istithna, the actual thing that is creating the exception, which is going to be translated to as accept in English. So ghayr here will be translated as accept. And then the noun that comes before ghayr, before that adat istithna, is going to be called the mustathna min, the noun that is being exempted from, or the noun that the other thing is being exempted from, okay, which is at-tullab here. Then you're going to have after that istithna, you're going to have the mustathna, which is the noun that's actually being exempted, that comes after except. So ja'a tullab, the students came, right? Ghayra, except khalidin. So khalid is a mustathna. Now, the way that is going to function with the noun, right? Ghayr or siwa or suwa or sawa, is that the adat istithna is actually going to ta'khudhu hukm mustathna, is going to take the ruling of this. In terms of its i'rab, am I going to say ghayru or ghayra? This is going to be determined based on what would have originally happened with the mustathna if you had used illa. So you can only understand this one here. You can only understand how these nouns here function if you've understood how illa functions. So the adat istithna here, ghayr, the noun, is going to take the i'rab of what the mustathna would have had if it was being exempted with illa. So pretty much this slide here is going to be applied to the actual noun. So we covered that when you use illa to make the istithna, sometimes going to be wujub al-nasb, it has to be mansub. Sometimes you can make it mansub or you can make it a badal. Then sometimes it's going to be hasib al-awamil in accordance with what the sentence dictates, right? Ma ja'a illa khalidun. Here it can be khalidun or khalidun, and here it has to be khalidan, right? So we covered this in a previous lesson. Everything that's being said here about the mustathna, which is khalid here, and its i'rab and what it's going to be, it can be applied, and it is applied to the noun here, coming as a adat istithna. So here, ghayra needs to be mansub. Why? Because of this right here. This that we covered in the previous lesson is going to be applied to the noun now, which is coming as a adat istithna. So pretty much, the adat istithna is going to ta'khudhu hukm mustathna, is going to take the ruling of the mustathna in terms of its i'rab as if it was the one that was being exempted with the word illa, when you exempted with the word illa, yani, as I showed in the previous slide. So I hope that's sort of clear. So to understand this, you need to understand how illa functions with the mustathna. And the same exact thing is going to be applied, but here's going to be applied to the actual noun itself. In terms of khalid, the mustathna majrurun bil idafati da'iman. The mustathna is always going to be mudaf ilayh, khalas. So the mustathna is always going to be mudaf ilayh, and the adat istithna, it is going to take all this stuff that we talked about here in the previous slide, in terms of it either having to be mansub or having to be badal or and so on and so forth. So that is how the nouns, they function. They pretty much function the same exact way as illa, except that they're the ones that are actually going to take the i'rab of the mustathna. So that's the nouns. Now to go to the af'al and the huruf, we have three. We have khala, we have ada, we have hasha. So what's going on here? What is going on here? So the aqsam of af'al and the huruf is like this. It's either going to be subiqa bima al-masdariya. It's going to be preceded with something called ma al-masdariya. Yani the word ada or the word hasha or the word khala is going to be preceded by this ma al-masdariya, which I'm going to explain what it is. Or it's lam yusbaq bima al-masdariya. It's not going to be preceded with ma al-masdariya. So if one of these three is preceded by what's called ma al-masdariya, then it needs to be treated as a verb. It needs to be treated as a verb, and it's not going to be treated as a harf. So here أفعال وما بعدها مفعول به وجوبا. So it, ada or hasha or khala, when it's preceded by ma al-masdariya, which I'm going to explain, it is going to force the noun that's coming after it, the mustathna, Muhammad, is going to force it to be a maf'ulun bi, and it's going to be mansub. So حضر الطلاب, the students, they attended, they were present. ما عاد Muhammad, except for Muhammad. So ما عاد, this entire thing right here will be translated as except, and Muhammad would be the thing that's coming after the mustathna. So Muhammad needs to be mansub maf'ulun bih. Why? Because عاد or khala or hasha is going to be treated as a verb here, wujuban. Why? Because it's being preceded with ma al-masdariya. So what is ma al-masdariya? To put it very, very brief, ma al-masdariya is a ma which is going to make the verb that comes after it a masdar in meaning. Ma is a harf which is going to come and is going to make the verb that comes after it a masdar in meaning. It has no equivalent in English, and it's not something that can be translated English. So it's something that you can only understand if you were to study it in the Arabic language, pretty much, and study it in more detail. So I'm not going to go into details here. So pretty much to make it very simple, if you see khana or ada or hasha preceded by a ma, then it's a verb. Ada is a verb, or khana is a verb, or hasha is a verb, and it's going to make the mustathna, the noun coming after it, mansub wujuban maf'ulun bih. If it's not preceded with a ma, right? If ada or khana or hasha is not preceded by a ma, it's up to you. You can make it a verb. You can make ada or hasha or khana a verb, and you can just treat it like this. Or if you want, you can make it a harf. And if you make it a harf, it's just going to function like this. حضر الطلاب عاد محمد. The students, they were present except for Muhammad. So ada is going to come pretty much as a mudaf, and Muhammadin is going to be mudaf ilayh. Okay? And that is pretty much how the adawat, they function depending on whether they're a harf or the asma or the af'al/huruf, and you can choose based on what we just covered for these three here. So I hope this was clear. I hope the topic of the mustathna is clear now.